Joining me now is Tennessee Senator Bill Hagerty, a member of the Senate Banking, Housing and Urban Affairs, Foreign Relations, and Appropriations and Rules Committees. Senator, it's great to see you this morning. What can you tell us? Where are we on all of this?
Well, we're waiting to see. There's been a tremendous amount of motion over in the House. We're waiting here in the Senate. Certainly, Chuck Schumer controls the Senate here. We're much better off having the Republicans in the House originate the bill. We'll get a far better result. There's a great deal of noise right now. I understand that J.D. Vance and Russ Vought are over meeting with the Freedom Caucus as we speak. I hope those conversations are going well. We're at a moment right now we're waiting to see.
Well, I mean, Trump posted on Truth Social last night, the United States will cut hundreds of billions of dollars in spending next year through reconciliation. House Freedom Caucus Chairman Andy Harris and Florida Senator Rick Scott sent a letter to House Speaker Mike Johnson and incoming Senate Majority Leader John Thune endorsing this two-step reconciliation process with more than 20 other lawmakers. This would focus on border policy first, right after the new Congress begins and Trump takes office, and then a second tax policy bill would be considered later in the year. But what do you say to what you just heard from Claudia Tenney? I mean, if you can't get this done right now, how are we going to expect these reconciliations are going to, get what you need done? And they are also saying that that first reconciliation bill should be fully offset with spending cuts, which we don't see right now.
Yeah, the reconciliation process is right before us. We've got great plans of how we're going to proceed through that as quickly as we possibly can, whether it's in two parts or one. I don't care as much about the timing of it as the fact the magnitude is going to be significant. What we don't want is the cloud of the debt ceiling hanging over us like the sword of Damocles, because Chuck Schumer will use that to extract more spending, use that to frustrate our efforts to make America much more competitive again. The DOGE effort is going to be underway, but it's going to take us some time to get there. We just need the headroom to do that, meaning we need the debt ceiling lifted right now.
So, I mean, President Trump tried to put that in, and Democrats balked at it. Is that the main problem right now, that you had the debt ceiling increase in there, and because President Trump wanted it, and the people who said no was because of that? Is that the issue?
As of last night, that seemed to be the issue.
Yeah.
The simple explanation, though, is this. If the debt ceiling gets to a point where Chuck Schumer can use it to extract more spending, it's going to achieve actually the opposite of the intended result. We need to be pragmatic here. We need to put President Trump and his team in a place to get the wins that the American public supported. I'd like to see this behind us. I'd like to see us get it done right now.
Well, do you think your colleagues will understand that and vote on this, or do you think we're headed for a shutdown?
Well, it's hard to say. Yesterday, what we saw was the vast majority of Republicans voting for the bill to not shut the government down. Every Democrat voted against it, with the exception of two. Clearly, we're not going to get Democrat support here. They prefer a shutdown. It's going to be something that we've got to continue to focus on today, make our case very clearly. I think President Trump and J.D. Vance, particularly having J.D. and Russ Vought here today, they're going to make the case in a very strong manner what this means from a pragmatic standpoint, because what we're trying to do is put President Trump and his team in a place to absolutely deliver on the promises that were made, what people voted for on November the 5th.
Yeah, I mean, Thomas Massey put this on X. This isn't complicated. Separate the bills and vote on them individually. One vote on the clean CR, one vote on the debt limit. Can you do that?
Anything's possible, but the debt limit issue is one that we need to address at this point, too. I hope that's not an attempt just to kick it down the road, because the debt limit actually expires January 1st. They can use what they call extraordinary measures to push it a certain number of months, but it's going to be right in the middle of our efforts to try to get through the reconciliation process and to try to implement the very beginnings of the cost-cutting efforts that I'm looking forward to working with President Trump and with Elon and with Vivek to make happen here. The timing of this would be very poor. We have an opportunity to deal with it right now, have a clean slate as we start the new year. In my mind, that's what we should do.
Well, look, we know that the Biden administration has been trying its best efforts to try to make it as tough as possible for President Trump. Everybody knows President Trump's plans, and part of that is this deportation project, as well as putting up the rest of the wall. But the administration has been auctioning off pieces of the border wall for pennies on the dollar. I know you just introduced a new bill prohibiting the use of federal funds to remove or dispose of border wall materials previously acquired by government. You say the Biden administration is making a deliberate effort to hurt Trump's ability to secure the border. What can you tell us?
Well, it's another evidence, another case in point of how tone deaf the Biden administration is, and the arrogance of this move at this point. The American public, 75%, feel we're on the wrong track. The vast majority of Americans want to see our border secure. And on the way out the door, the Biden-Harris administration are slapping the American taxpayer in the face, selling off these assets that they know we need and that we're going to purchase, selling those assets off at 5 cents on the dollar for what they were bought, worth even, worth probably double right now, given the inflation that Biden has induced. We bought these assets much cheaper, back in the time when President Trump was building the wall. So this is a massive financial hit to the American public. The Biden and Harris administration is so tone deaf, they don't care. They just want to scorch the earth on the way out the door. It's going to be another disgraceful capstone to what I think is going to be the worst presidency in our lifetimes.
Well, I mean, you also had all these add-ons, right? Things that were completely unrelated. And I'm trying to understand who snuck in that earlier continuing resolution that basically said that, if you had a subpoena to hand over emails, Congress could block it. I mean, President Trump right away saw that and said, wait a minute, why are we doing this? Why is that in here? That's basically going to shield Liz Cheney, because Liz Cheney had the January 6th commission. Some people say she destroyed evidence and that, Trump is going to want to see those emails. Why should Congress be able to block that? And why would that be in a continuing resolution?
Yeah, they shouldn't. That absolutely was inappropriate. I don't know how it got in there or what the circumstances were, because I wasn't involved in the negotiations that were taking place. But that is precisely the thing that the American public sees. And it really just it's a disgrace when people look at these Christmas trees that come together right before Christmas under extreme pressure. They hand the text over just within hours of having to vote on it. And we dig into it and find things like this that have been jammed in. It's something that I think President Trump was right to call out. What he and the law and his team worked on was something much more narrow, seemed to be much more palatable, would have taken care of the continuing resolution, would have taken care of disaster relief, and it would have gotten us to a place where we could have addressed the debt ceiling issue, so he would have the runway necessary, he meaning President Trump and his team, to actually begin to deliver on the successes that the American public are expecting.
And President Trump said, look, it's better to deal with the debt ceiling on Biden's watch than President Trump's watch. Tell me about the ramifications of the debt limit.
It's only fair that he does it, because the debt ceiling has been reached thanks to the massive spending, the tremendous inflation that Joe Biden has created. I mean, the deficits that we're running are astronomical, and Joe Biden hasn't backed off a bit. If you look at it, trillions above where we were before the pandemic, and Joe Biden just keeps on spending. The Democrats just keep on spending. The implications of this are we need to knock the debt ceiling negotiations way down the pike, even eliminate them if need be. But we need to give President Trump, and we were talking about a 2-year extension, that would certainly give the opportunity for the DOJ team to get in, to really get their arms around the many, many problems here and begin to implement real cost-cutting measures. That way, the debt ceiling may not become an issue, because we'll be able to drive the deficit down. That's the plan, but we need enough time to do it.
Let me get your take on what Trump said to Europe. The president-elect told the European Union in a Truth Social post that the EU must reduce its trade gap with the United States through large-scale oil and gas purchases or face tariffs. Basically, buy oil and gas from America or else. Oil prices this morning are trading this way as stocks sell off again this morning. We've got crude oil at 69.14 right now. Your thoughts, and the euro, of course, trading up, your thoughts on that post and what Trump is trying to communicate to Europe, or face what? What is he going to do?
Well, the context is important here, Maria, because our trading terms with Europe have gotten much worse under Joe Biden. They've imposed a new border carbon tax on us that hurts American companies, new disclosure requirements based on climate and DEI. They're much more onerous, much more compliance cost if American companies want to do business in Europe. Again, it's all about making American companies less competitive in their markets, giving them an unfair competitive advantage. They also have been buying Russian energy. In doing so, they've been funding the war in Ukraine. They're speaking out of both sides of their mouth. President Trump is shooting right at the point. This is an easy fix that addresses not only the trade imbalance, but also it begins to address Russia's activity in Ukraine, because it begins to take away the resources that Europe has been providing them. This makes a tremendous amount of sense. Europe will probably, clutch its pearls and scream and cry, but this is something that they need to step up and address. In fact, the EU came out right after President Trump was elected and made the statement that perhaps they should consider buying U.S. LNG and supplanting Russian LNG. I think they know this is coming, and if it doesn't come, President Trump has imposed tariffs before. I worked in the administration last time when he did it. He means business, and I think Europe needs to wake up and see this as a call to bring back reciprocal relations and stop funding Russia as they are fighting Ukraine.
Yeah, I mean, look, and the Democrats know what President Trump wants to do. Trump has been talking about his agenda for a long time going into the election. But what do you make of what Claudia Tenney just told us a few minutes ago? New York Congresswoman said, look, if we don't have a speaker because we're opening this up now because people are fighting amongst themselves, we're not going to have a speaker January 3rd, then you can't certify the election on January 6th.
Well, I'm not speculating on what may or may not happen in the House of Representatives. Things change there on the hour. What I do hope is that we'll get an answer from that body today, that we'll be able to vote on something later today or this evening here in the Senate, and we'll be able to keep the economy open, and we'll be able to deal with the debt limit at the same time.
Okay, so you think that the House, well, we're told that the House is going to vote on this by 10 a.m. By the time you see what happens with that vote, when does it make its way over to the Senate? You think you will be able to avert a government shutdown tonight?
It's in the range of possibility, but we need to see something quickly from the House.
But, I mean, some Republicans say, certainly conservatives say, why is everybody afraid of a government shutdown? Maybe it should shut down. I mean, isn't that the threat that constantly gets Republicans to roll over? Because the Democrats stick together, and, you know, they blame the government shutdown on Republicans, and isn't that the issue that always gets people to say, okay, we'll cave? Do you want Republicans to cave, or are you fine with the government shutdown tonight?
Well, I certainly want Republicans to stand on principle, but here's the added consequence of a shutdown while Joe Biden is in office. Joe Biden will determine what are essential and what are non-essential employees. What he'll do at Christmas is he'll shut down the passport offices. He'll shut down the national parks. He'll inflict maximum pain on the American public. When President Trump dealt with the shutdown, he really did look for what are non-essential activities that put the least amount of damage on the American public. Joe Biden's going to go absolutely the other way, look for headline opportunities. They'll make Christmas painful for America. That's what we know will happen. That's a practicality of the way Democrats will deal with this. And I think that's the extra pain they'll try to extract.
Wow. Well, you know, that's not what anybody wants at all. And people are so sick of these political games, Senator. Thanks very much for walking us through it. We so appreciate your time always.
Thank you, Maria.
Bill Hagerty.